the Democratic Party in the wake of 2016 might have been expected to take a little bit more of a hands-off approach to primaries. They got so burnt by so many in the base being furious about the way that they appeared to be tipping the scales for Hillary Clinton in the presidential primary. But instead of kind of stepping back, the establishment of the Democratic Party in race after House race across the country is stepping in to endorse a particular preferred candidate over an insurgent, kind of populist, progressive-backed candidates. In some cases, they have the backing of Justice Democrats or Our Revolution or Move On or Working Families Party or NARAL or any number of these outside groups that are getting involved in races, and they're having to compete against these establishment candidates. And the establishment candidates, you don't have to read between the lines to figure out that they're getting the support of the party. The party, in many cases, has put out a press release and said, we are supporting this candidate. This is who we think we should win this primary, which raises the question, how good of a candidate is this if they need massive party support just to get through the primary against these other candidates who all they have is a support of a grassroots network and some small dollars. Laura Berquist, the DLC, DNC never learns. The establishment Democratic Party deserves to crash and burn. I'm saying so Laura, first of all, appeared to be tipping the scales of 2016. The reason I say appeared is that they never put out a press release that said the Democratic National Committee is endorsing Hillary Clinton in this 2016 primary. They never put that out publicly. The difference here is that they are in House races putting out statements, telling reporters, appearing with the candidate at events and saying, this is our woman or this is our man. Now, in some cases, you do have to read between the lines at who's giving money to them, who has endorsed them, to figure out whether is this actually an organized kind of amount of support from the party or not. On the question of the party, does the party have to die? Well, the party's going to do what the party's going to do. What our story is about is that there is a entire ecosystem, as you very much know, that is growing up separately from the mainline Democratic Party organizations. And so it consists of things like Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, PCCC, and this whole range, People's House Project, and then you've got the legacy ones from Netroots like DFA, PCCC, Move On, etc. All of these groups together collectively creating almost a second party. People say they want a third party. It sort of is a third party, but it's operating within the Democratic Party. And so the question is, will it become the dominant member of the coalition with the current establishment under it, or will it continue to be a dominated faction? And the primaries are going to answer some of those questions. DCCC was very pro-Hillary Clinton, but they aren't evil or anything. No, I don't think they're evil. DCCC is all bad, right? Not all bad. And then this one. There can be no revolution with everyone split several different directions, though, guys. No, I don't think they're evil. I don't think they're bad. They are propagating what I think is a failed approach to politics, which is finding kind of business-friendly, wealthy candidates who don't really take much of a position but have a lot of money to fund rather bland congressional campaigns. That's kind of their approach to it. The question on the can we be divided and have a revolution, I mean, almost every revolution that's ever been carried out has actually been carried out by a very small faction of people who were kind of the most radical and seized a moment of opportunity. And I don't think anybody thinks we're going to have that kind of a revolution here. But you don't need complete unity. What you need is 51% in the primaries, and then and then a path to victory in the general election. And a lot of these candidates that we wrote about here in this story, they say that what they believe politically is the right thing, but it is also pragmatically the way to win. That getting the base out, that energizing people, creating volunteers is a way to win, even in some of these Republican-leaning districts, that it is a more effective and pragmatic way than to try to find a centrist who plays Republican light. So they're making two arguments. And if that latter argument proves accurate and some of these populist candidates actually win in these R+5, R+10 districts, then that changes the way that the party orients itself toward that strategy. Morgeson Andre, writing in from Germany here, honestly, I see 2018 and 2020 as a last chance for you guys to save your country. Can't speak for other generations, but at least mine. Throughout Europe, we're happy about Trump getting elected. Firstly, because it would finally bring about the collapse of the U.S. octopus around the world. And secondly, because it would make enough people up to start change your country needs so much. I think that there's a lot to that. I think if the kind of united front of the resistance plus everything else it throws itself against the wall in 2018 and 2020 and loses, then I think you're going to see locked-in Republican majorities for the foreseeable future because they will control redistricting again and lock Democratic voters out. The Janus Supreme Court decision that's coming will continue to decimate unions. And it's been shown that as public sector unions are crushed in states like Wisconsin or Michigan, the share of Democratic vote goes down by something around 3%, which might not sound like a lot, but in a swing state, it's enough to cost you tons of elections, to cost you the state, and in this case, to cost you the presidency. So if with all of this energy and all of this enthusiasm, all of this anger, and the public sector unions that still remain in force, they still can't get over the top, and Republicans are allowed to redistrict again and continue to pack the courts, then I think he's right that the politics change dramatically, and what becomes achievable changes, and what resistance and what political activity looks like changes.
The other day was Holocaust Remembrance Day. I watched a documentary that PBS Frontline was advertising, and the first line of the documentary was that when the Third Reich won power, it actually won a plurality but not a majority because there were three opposition parties.
Right, and the communists in Germany had a slogan that's since become kind of sardonically famous that was, "First Hitler, then us." And the argument was that Hitler would get elected, or Hitler would take power. He'd be such a disaster. He'd sharpen the contradictions between the parties, and the people then would see the failed practice of the fascists, and they would then swing over to the communists. So first Hitler, then us, and it became partly famous because he rounded up the socialists and the communists and put them in concentration camps first, before then moving on to what we all know eventually became of that Third Reich. There was not a recognition among the opponents of Hitler until it was too late. However, I don't think that's quite the case here. I think even the far left here in the United States, and some of the most progressive elements, while they disagree sharply with the DNC or the DCCC, there is not the same level of blood feud that existed in the 1920s and 1930s in Germany, where all of these political factions were armed. All of them had their own security guards. Factions were shooting each other, compared to what we have now, which is some Twitter spats and some ugliness in Facebook threads.